a lot of old houses out there and they all got old crawl spaces. Now we know that if you put a new floor, kiln dry timber over a crawl space, it's going to fail within the first couple of days or weeks. So there's a very specific method of installing a wooden floor over a crawl space. And today we're going to show you that method of exactly how it's done. So if you ever have the situation of a crawl space, this is the only way to do it. So let's show you the floor and show you the different places why we're going to change the floor. Mainly because of termite and age. So let's show you those different places. Okay, one of the reasons for changing this floor, in fact it looks like the main reason, is that this has been eaten by termite. So the whole floor is collapsing here. The beams have been eaten and the floor has been eaten. So it served its purpose. This floor is 1920s, so you're talking already 80, 90 years old. That's how long this floor has lasted. It's done its life. Now's the time to put in a new floor that'll last another 90 or 100 years. So let's start pulling this floor out and going through the process of our crawl space installation. We're in the crawl space now, and I'd like to go through a few points to explain to you why a new wooden floor cannot go into this crawl space like they did in the old days. In the old days, the timber was air dried, and you'll notice that they also put nails through the surface of the flooring to also keep it down. And because the timber was air dried, it's sort of climatized to the crawl space humidity. They also had air bricks to try and keep the humidity down as best as possible. So if you look at the moisture now, in this, just in the moisture in the joist is on 25%. And if you look at the moisture down here in the on the floor, it's sopping wet, it's on 90. Soil on the base, it's getting wet all the time. And what happens, it causes underneath a situation, a humid area. So it's wet, it's humid, and the termites love that. And it's not the termite that's going to get it, it's going to be the dry rot that's going to ruin this floor. So the new way of doing it now, what we're going to do, we're going to replace all the joists, because they've all rotten and termite eaten. Put new treated joists, because treated joists the termites won't eat and it won't rot. So that'll last another 80 to 100 years. And then we're going to close off this whole soil space with plastic. And then extra sheet of plastic over the new joists, and then a flat sheet of plastic. That's 3 sheets of plastic. That should stop, because moisture rises, it tries to get in everywhere, so we're trying to stop it as much as possible. Then we're using a commercial ply as a subfloor, and then we can carry on laying our floor. So as you can see, the beams are wet, the beams are rotten. Now we're going to get the rest of the floor out and replace all these beams and get on with the plastic and the waterproofing. You can see the floor's all out now. We just left behind with the beams. All these beams are going to have to be replaced. Looks like everything's eaten or rotten, but mostly termite eaten. You can actually see the tunnels the termites have made. This is a piece that I've actually fallen through now when I was walking along these beams. So be careful in this situation. Right, so it'll be off to the hardware to get new treated joists. You need treated so they don't rot, because you see there's been some repair work done here with pine untreated. Within 5 years they were gone already. Treated beams, SABS 250 micron plastic, and rebuild the walls a little bit where they've collapsed, and we can get this floor going for the next 100 years. Right, so let's go to the hardware and get all the beams. See, all the beams are out now and the termite boys are here. Now they're going to start spraying all the insecticides to make sure that they kill all the termites, and I think they give something like a 5-year guarantee. Now's the time to clean up the whole crawl space, get rid of all the rubble, get it nice and neat. You can build up the little retaining walls again, or the plinths that are going to hold the bearers. and then we can start putting in our plastic. Remember the plastic, 250 micron SABS plastic, and this will stop the moisture from coming up. So you're trying to block off as much moisture as possible. Moisture always rises, so it's important that we put 3 layers, as you're going to see just now. But this is the first layer we're putting in at the moment on the grounds. Right, Henry, the installer, now is cutting some wooden little blocks, and he's going to use these blocks to actually shoot against the plastic onto the wall to hold the plastic in place once the floor is closed up so it doesn't move. Right, so Henry's cutting the blocks. Now we're going to go inside, get the plastic going properly, and then you're going to see us shooting the blocks into the wall. Here we go. Here come the blocks. Henry's going to get his pneumatic concrete nailer and simply just nail them into the wall. There we go. So you'll do this all around to keep the plastic in place, and then you can start putting in the beams. Right, what's happening now is Henry's nailing a 114 by 38 piece of pine treated timber onto a retaining wall. The reason for this is that when you place the joist, you've actually got something to nail into. You'll notice in this crawl space, it's a little bit different. The retaining wall actually acts as a bearer. In other crawl spaces, you have just square round brick plinths, and the bearer sits on top of the plinth, and then the joist sits on top of the bearer. In this case, the retaining wall is the bearer. That's the way. Right, so Henry's done all the 114 by 38s on top of the retaining walls, and now you can start nailing the joists or the beams into that piece of pine that he's placed. He's checking the levels. Let's have a look. Perfect level. There's a master craftsman at work. Nail going in, and we can continue this procedure right across the whole floor. We're checking each one is level, but not only each beam must be level, they must all be level across the whole room. And now's the time to level these. You can't go and level afterwards on the plywood, you level on your beam. So everyone is in place and level, and when the plywood goes in, the floor will be level. Right, as you can see, the reading in these beams are sitting on 10% in the green on our protimeter. We're very happy with that. 12% is what we're looking for, and anything below is a gift. Beams are dry, plywood's on the way, installation is going well. Okay, the job's taking shape. Our second row of plastics in. It's deep looped over the beams. Remember, it's a 250 micron plastic, a virgin plastic. You can't use recycled plastics, it'll disintegrate. You need a 250 micron virgin plastic. It's not expensive. Then after this row of plastic, the next row of plastic we put is a plastic flush over the beams. That plastic will come up the wall behind the skirting so that moisture can't get into the back of the skirting, and that'll be our final plastic. Then we can start putting in our plywood. Right, final sheet of plastics in. Now we're going to put the plywood on. Before we start laying the floor, let's just check the moisture's all right. So I'm just going to check the moisture here. The moisture is sitting here on about 9%. We're looking at 12% on the protimeter, so we're within our limit over here. It's actually more like 8%, which is good. This is a plywood subfloor, so of course it must be dry. So it's a much better situation than if it was concrete. There we've got more danger. So there we're sitting on about 8%. This is the flooring we're going to lay. And the flooring, the camera can see that, we're sitting on 6%. So we are 2 percentage points difference, and that's what we're looking for, a maximum of 2 percentage points difference. We're going to then check the moistures also down the outside, in the middle, and around, just to make sure that everything is right. It's no use just checking in one place. What Henry's doing now is just marking on the actual plywood pencil line so that he knows where to screw. This pencil line sits directly over the joist or beam underneath the board, because when the whole floor is covered with boards, you're not going to be able to see the joist. So you rather mark it and you know exactly where to put your screws. Right guys, you saw the installer cutting the edge of this board. The reason for that is that it was sticking over the actual beam underneath. And of course when you put your next one down, it's going to be a weak point. So we make sure that the end of the board sits in the middle of a beam. So both ends are sitting on the beam.
Want to come out a little bit. That's about the 5mm.
You'll notice that we've left a little 5mm gap between the boards. This is also for expansion purposes. It's a full big board, at least it's got a little bit of space to move into. If it was tight and did expand, there's a possibility to push itself up. So we always leave a 5mm gap all around on the boards for expansion. Guys, you won't believe this is the same room where we started earlier on. With all the termite, the rotted beams, all the moisture, all the problems we had here. This is now the way a crawl space has got to be handled according to Sawlfa, South African Wood and Laminate Flooring Association. Now we have a subfloor, all the plastics are in, and this floor will now be good for the next 100 years at least. Remember the 5mm gaps around the ply, of course also the same gaps around the edges. The subfloor is now screwed in to the beams underneath. Don't forget also we have to check that the subfloor or the screeds are perfectly straight. So we're going to put our straight edge on the floor over here. The maximum dip we want under here is 3mm. Irrespective if it's a 1 meter, 2 meter or 3 meter straight edge, no more than 3mm dip. If it's more than 3, then you've got to do your self-leveling, which we showed you in the pre-installation requirements. So very happy with this floor, and voila, this is it. Now we have a subfloor, you can do whatever you want on it. So we're going to have a look in the next session what we're going to actually lay on top of the subfloor. This is the way to do a crawl space. The only other way to do a crawl space is to actually throw a full, compact, 250 micron plastic and then throw a slab. But that can take months to dry. This is the quick way. This little installation took about 2 or 3 days. Now we can carry on and do our installation.